Hello, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV getting tongue-tied here is also available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also now Smart TVs 2016 forward. My tongue's really my tongue is tied. I think I've got a noose around it. So here he is, Gary Groob, our co-host, fresh from Prague, the real Prague, the one that you gotta fly to from here.
Oh yes,
across the big pond.
And when you leave flying to our lovely airports, it sure isn't an easy ride. I'm telling you. The best part of it was let's see, we got stuck. Gales, we got stuck in Toronto for a 4.5-hour delay. That was all fine and good, except that nobody was telling us anything. In fact, they got tired of pushing times up, so they would tell us in 20 minutes we'll tell you if you have a half-hour more delay. Yeah. Then they started going with in 10 minutes we'll see if we have a 10-minute more delay. So they wouldn't tell us hour or whatever. After 4.5 hours, we finally got on the plane and we finally took off to Frankfurt. And of course, when we landed in Frankfurt 8.5 hours later, we'd missed all our connections. So we had a 10-hour layover in Frankfurt. Now, if anybody's been to that airport, it takes you about 3 hours just to get to your gate because the place is mammoth. It's a city. It's not an airport. It's a city. So, and they kept changing the gates on us. So, you got a bunch of tired lacrosse players trying to figure out where they're going, and you keep moving the home on them. So we're all roaming the hallways and roaming the elevators and these mile-long walks and everything else, just trying to find a bit of food and a bit of rest because, if you're like me, I don't sleep well on airplanes anyways. So we finally get out of Frankfurt and we wind up in Prague, and it's 1:30 in the morning, and we're now going to trek with all the equipment to the hotel. The plan was to arrive there on the Tuesday, go to the arena from the airport, drop off the equipment, then go back to the hotel, check in, relax, next day play. Coming in at 1:30 in the morning, by the time everybody's settled and got their rooms, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. The next morning, everybody's got to get up because they're playing. And taking the transit, the trolleys there in Prague, with everybody's equipment was magical. Just to get to the arena so that they could play their first game.
I apologize. I'm taking my pills. I forgot to take my pills this morning.
You take your pills, Frank. We want to make sure.
I'm using my ears. I already. The part of the reason why I'm I'm very heavily medicated.
Well, the closing will be much better when all the pills kick in. Frank is on everything but skates, folks, so it's all good.
Hang on, let me check.
Yeah, everything but skates. But anyways, so they played their first game, and it didn't go magically, but something happened during that week. It was very magical. I watched a team of individuals who knew each other. Some played with each other, but this developed into a team. The Gales became a team on and off the floor throughout this 8-day adventure. And the team that came back by no means was the same team that came out. You had some absolutely phenomenal players on that team. Our guest, hopefully he makes it. Obviously, there's some logistical problems. Cam Milligan was the leader on there. He had 8 goals and a couple of assists throughout his 6 games played. You had Bryce Tomey, also of New York Riptide fame, who was also playing. He won Defensive Player of the Tournament because he was everywhere. He had a couple of goals as well. Bryce is just a fantastic player and a great guy, too. And these guys were the leaders of the team. Brendan McFarland was the captain. Justin Bragg, an assistant captain as well. All phenomenal players and all great people on and off the floor, and led a very young team to gel into a team that was actually vying for the championship. Now, because of a couple of logistic things that I've already explained, and a few other little hitches here and there, they finished 6th out of 24 in the tournament. And to me, hold your heads up high, boys. That was an excellent showing. Could they have gone higher? Yeah, I think so. And with everything working at the beginning, I think they would have. But young team should be back next year, almost the same. So, the sky's the limit for this team. And they were playing some excellent teams. I watched Jeff Shatler play for the Canadian team. I watched Drew Candid play for the Six Nations team. I watched a lot of familiar faces playing on some of these other teams. One of the stories that came to me was also the Team Israel. They had a couple of guys who were in the military who had to get leaves to play. And as soon as the tournament was over, went back and are now guarding the border again. Life gets real for them in a hurry. Oh. So, yeah, so there's a lot of meaning to this tournament. I had a chance to meet people from everywhere, and it was heartwarming to see the lacrosse community in full regalia. Yeah, Frank, go ahead.
I was just going to say that last year they had to redo the COVID restrictions, so I guess it was also something that everybody was happy to finally get to participate.
Yeah, they got back together last year. Last year they had 21 teams in. They came back to the 24-team format this year. They didn't play, obviously, for the 2 years previous. This would have been the 30th anniversary. Now, a little background into this. Bear with me to read this. The Rubeski tournament is held by the lacrosse club Custodes Sokol Raditon to honor its former player who tragically died in the autumn of 1993. Rubeski was born on July 1st, 1972, and was among the most gifted LCC players. Moreover, he was a keen ice hockey player, gymnast, cycleball player. On November 30th, 1993, he died of his injuries caused by a drunk driver who hit him while waiting for a bus. The early tournament was the beginning of the Czech lacrosse season, which happened at the end of March. And this is before they had turf, so they'd be playing on muddy fields laden with sawdust to try and make it not so slippery. During the 8th Memorial in 2001, thanks to a generous gift from the city of Prague and the effort of the LCC team members, the arena was refurbished with artificial surface. And the grand opening was part of the Rubeski Memorial, which also had another first. Teams from abroad, the U.S., Germany, and Japan, had joined to be part of this tournament, and became the first box tournament to have participants from more than 2 countries. And the champion that year was LCC Raditon. The next year, a couple of American teams came in with a few professional players. As things went along, we had the Green Gales come in just after that. In 2014, another milestone, an entire team from Kanawaki, all native team, joined the tournament as well. 2018, the 24-team system was introduced, with several games being played in a separate arena to get everything to work cohesively. And again, after a couple of years of COVID being in there, they restarted up last year. And this year we're back to full regalia. Now, this tournament is amazing. You have teams from all over the world. And again, players, coaches, everybody, it's a really friendly environment. Everybody chatting with everybody, trading jerseys and sweatshirts and caps. And you have all the little kids who are over there. The second last day, we had the little kids on the field, and the players were giving clinics to them. And I think the players were having more fun than the kids, to tell you the truth. It was just heartwarming to watch. I got a lot of photos from it. It was terrific. And then, of course...
So the winners, Gary, were the Nova Scotia Privateers.
That's correct. That's correct. In an absolute fantastic game with LCC Raditon, who were the defending champions from the year previous. This game had everything. It was fast-paced. No, it rained all day. So that field was slick as slick could be. So these guys running up and around could have been doing it on ice. But to be able to do this and to do it well on this surface is just amazing. And it went back and forth. The lead changed a couple of times in the last 5 minutes, and 11-10 was your final for Nova Scotia. And after the game, we were treated to a 5-minute fireworks display, which was just absolutely spectacular. A little background about the field. Hitler, during the war, this is where he had his officers do their marching drills. Just to put it in perspective of Eastern Europe and where it was. Prague was one of the cities that was never touched during the war, thankfully, because some of the buildings are just, you can't go without taking a picture postcard photo. They're just so beautiful. The architecture is so beautiful. They're working on restoring a lot of these 500- and 600-year-old buildings and all the masonry and everything else that's going on with it. Just an absolutely gorgeous city. And I highly recommend, if you have an opportunity to go there, go there. Even if it's not for the tournament. If you're able to catch the tournament as well, double bonus, because you're going to see some of the greatest lacrosse from everywhere. And what I've noticed is that the European game is catching the North American game rather quickly. And just like hockey, if North America isn't too concerned about this, they will catch them. Very
our guest played for the Green Gaels. They were 6th overall. And I'm looking here, just into your point, the Tel Aviv LC finished right behind them.
Yes. And the Tel Aviv team won in 2018. They're a fantastic team. And again, fantastic people. And it was a pleasure talking with the coaches. Their head coach is Chad Culp, former NLL player as well. So it was interesting. Talking with our guest next week, actually, is the coach of the Dutch team, Wayne Cawley, who is of NLL fame as a goalie, Hall of Famer. And we had a chance to talk one evening, him and his assistant coach, Neil Paulus. And they work with R2 Sessler, who is in the Netherlands, and they go back and forth and get everything moving and everything going. So a lot of these teams overcome an awful lot of obstacles to get themselves in tournament shape and tournament ready. And to watch these guys play, you never know. These guys play fantastic together.
Give me a chance here, Gary, and we'll mention some of the individual awards. And if you have something to say for each individual, you could throw that in. The individual awards were for the best offensive player, Zach Kerrigan of the Nova Scotia Privateers.
Yeah, an absolutely fantastic tournament he had. Just an absolute leader on the floor, and a big reason why they won.
The best defensive player, Bryce Tolmie of the Green Gaels.
Yeah, I've mentioned Bryce before. A leader on the floor, really a great guy off the floor as well. A wealth of knowledge. Very, very easygoing guy. We'll have him on the show probably in a month or so. And he I lost my screen for a sec. I'm still here. He had a little stay with the New York Riptide. I really hope he catches on somewhere in the NLL, because he will definitely be an asset no matter where he plays. He's just that good a player. And transitionally, defensively, just to show how tough, he showed me his hip in the airport on the way home. And it was about 4 different colors, and it went from his hip all the way down his thigh. He had blocked a couple of shots, setting picks, a few other things that went on in a couple of the games. And one of his pads was cracked from one of the slashes he took. So if you don't think that this tournament means anything to anybody, it means a lot to everybody. And it's just incredible to see the lengths that everybody goes to try and win this tournament.
The best goalie was Josef Slavik of LC Custodes.
He was phenomenal. When he played against the Green Gaels, he was downright unbeatable. They beat the Green Gaels 9-4. And the game before, the Green Gaels had shut out a team beforehand. So their scoring, their offense had come alive, and he shut them down entirely. Just a brick wall.
We had as the best scorer was Zach Kerrigan of the Nova Scotia Privateers. He had 18 goals.
Yeah, like I say, a big reason why Nova Scotia won. But that whole team worked so well together. It was incredible to watch. They were down at one point of that game 5-2, and people were writing them off. and never say die, never say quit. They came back, tied it up, just coming to the end of the second. In the third, they were behind again. The lead changed a couple of times, and with not a lot of time left, scored the winning goal and came away with the championship 11-10. Really, really fantastic game. And if you want packed, well, when the home team's playing, that place was jammed, and all day long, people were coming in there, and a loud, exuberant fan base for LCC Raritan, and it was amazing. And then to watch all the other players and fans for Nova Scotia, it was great. And there's so much energy in that arena. It's fantastic.
The MVP of the tournament, according to points, was Zach Kerrigan as well of the Nova Scotia Privateers. He had 18 points, all of them goals, but it made him the most valuable player of the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I say, he was a huge part of why that team came in. But we can't forget some of the other guys on that team, because man, that was a team effort to win and beating a really, really good Raritan team.
The All-Star team was made up of Nathan Jollymore of the Nova Scotia Privateers, the goaltender.
Yeah, and again, when things were looking bleak, he stepped up and allowed his team back to come back and eventually tie and eventually take the lead in that game. So all through the tournament, he was a rock.
The defense All-Stars were Antonin Gottwald of the LC Custodes and Matt Flappin of the Tel Aviv Lacrosse team.
Mm-hmm. We've talked already about the Raritan team. The Tel Aviv team, the team Israel. I had a chance to talk with David Denenberg, who was the creator of that team and also a player. And it's just such a heartwarming story with a lot of these guys and what they have to do to get there. And one of the things that he brought up was about the arena itself. Is with the Hitler thing and marching his thing. It just goes to show you that good can come from anything, and good will triumph over evil. That was his quote, just about the field itself. And to me, that really sums it all up in a nutshell.
Yeah, it had to be exciting. The transition player All-Star was Niall Sear of the Nova Scotia Privateers.
Mm-hmm. Again, you're going to see a lot of the guys from these two teams because they were just so good. And it was such an even game. Really, I'd love to see the Gales in that final, but you had the two best teams, in my opinion, going against each other for that championship, and they gave us a game and a half, really. Right down to the wire. Lots of excitement, lots of opportunities. I got one of the balls that flew out of there, and I had to be quick because I didn't want it or me to fall into the mud because it looked like Woodstock out there after all that rain. And I got the Gales to sign it for me. So, thank you, Green Gales.
That's awesome. And finally, the offensive players of the tournament, Roop Jokela of the Turco Titans and Jan Hulesh of the LC Custodes.
Yeah, again, like I'd said, if North America isn't very careful, the European game will surpass the North American, just like hockey. And it will be a rude awakening when that happens. But these are really talented people who, if the NLL is smart, will start sending scouts out there to start looking at these guys to see if it can fit into their lineups. Because there's a lot of untapped talent just waiting. And then to see all the young kids with their sticks, with their jerseys, with their caps, all excited about the tournament. The blood is alive and well in growing the game.
Well, it's quite the long trip. It's pretty exciting to go somewhere else, and I can't imagine what it was like. How the reaction of the players meeting on that ground together, right? I don't know how interrelated all the teams were, Gary. Were there a lot of players that knew each other on each of the teams, or was it as international as you might expect?
No, you have players that are, of course, are living in North America. They're playing for the teams because of family and whatever, and can make the teams, as well as people who live inside the countries of those teams. You also have a number of guys who know each other have played the tournament years past. Some have played it 4 or 5 times. So they've made lifelong bonds with each other. And Wayne Colley had taken me through the building. Sokol is the name of the building. It's like the Czech version of YMCA. It has a falcon on top. Sokol is a Czech word for falcon, and that's where they kept their equipment, and that's where they changed. And in the center of everything was just a mass of equipment where a lot of the teams were training. Some of the higher up in the standings ones had separate places up top. But the one thing that Wayne stressed to me is never does a piece of equipment go missing. Nobody helps themselves to other things. The lacrosse community is very good. A very honest breed. So, heartwarming to see that. But man, to see all that equipment, just a sea of equipment above, so everybody gets a chance to know everybody intimately.
It had to be really exciting. And what about people who are going to see the team? I know just from your experience, it was quite a side issue that it almost became central to be able to go see a country like that, a city like that, basically spending whatever off time there was to go check out the city. I know you did that. Was there a lot of talk about the city, or is it just ho-hum because these tournaments move around different cities and some of them that can be like Prague?
Well, no, this tournament is every year in Prague. And as for sightseeing, I made sure that if we had a morning game and a night game, in between, I would be out and I would be taking trolleys to get down to the old city to see as much as I could. I had an idea of what I wanted to see and where, but they took us on a boat cruise as well. So we were able to, one, experience some of the food, two, bond as a team, have a few Pilsners. The Czech beer is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. You can drink that, no preservatives, and you feel great the next day. I don't remember not waking up without hangover. It's the most amazing thing in the world. Fresh as a daisy, next morning, away you go.
So, what did you bring Esmeralda back from there? A lacrosse jersey.
A lot of their Rescue cups, actually. That's our new crystal pattern. The plastic cups that we used over there, which have a hook on them, so you can put a bunch of them together, so you can carry 5 of them out with you, or hook them on your shirt, hook them on your pants, whatever. So you always have.
Wow, ingenious.
Yeah, it was
empty
terrific.
Though.
They've been doing that for a number of years. This was my first experience with it, and it was fantastic. But yeah, to watch people carry, instead of trying to carry out all these things, everybody clips them on, and you only have to carry one, and they're strong enough cups that you can do that. So,
how about, I got a question about the games. I notice here from the pitcher, from the team pitcher, from the privateers doing the typical pitcher with the trophy. I see above the glass there was a fence. Can you still play the ball off the fence?
No, that's out of play.
Okay, so it had to hit the glass, or if it hit the fence, it was out.
That's right. Just like in the NLL, if it hits it's the fence, but that's just to protect the fans.
No kidding.
Well, you're sitting there unaware behind the net, and they have there's a grill just off to the side and a bar, so you're sitting there under the tents if you're trying to get out of the rain or out of the sun, depending on the weather, and it can be easy to be unaware of something flying in. So, yeah.
Well, it's traditional now everywhere in every arena.
And how big of the tournament is? Well, Steven Stamp was calling the games from the booth, so it was great to see Steven again and great to chat with him. But yeah, he was there through the whole tournament. The week prior, they had the developmental leagues out there, so there was things going on a week beforehand. There's things going on a couple of days after. So, but pretty much everything is back to normal now. Everybody has come back. Everybody's come back to their time zones, and more or less, talking about getting ready for next year's Rubeski tournament. When you hear about it and watch some YouTube stuff and read about it, and you have your opinion set about how great a thing it is, and then you go there, and then it completely obliterates that a million times over. It's just incredible. I really can't give it justice putting it into words, just how fantastic this entire event is, how it's run, the people attached to it, the teams, the players, the coaching, and everything that goes into it. Everybody should be congratulated over and over again for the amount of effort, the amount of time, the amount of skill, and everything else that goes into this particular tournament.
How about the rules?
European rules. So most of it is the same as North American. Um, there were a couple of little discrepancies here and there, but nothing really. They're pretty much standard.
What was one of the rules that were different?
Well, it became interpretation really
Ah,
on how to do things. Some things were called strict and some things weren't, and it depended on the game and it depended on the officials. Kind of like watching an NLL game, eh, Frank?
so the game itself wasn't much more different
No,
than
no, no.
what you're accustomed to watching NLL lacrosse or North American lacrosse.
Right.
It was pretty much the same stuff.
Hmm.
Um, what surprised you, other than seeing how beautiful Prague is? What surprised you, like when you went there, not expecting?
The skill levels of all the teams. You'd expect that the top teams and the favorites would be there, and then some of the other teams, you really would. The skill level on all of these teams, and nobody was out of any game. You know, some of them were a little bit more lopsided than others at times, but really, the skill levels are all coming up by all the teams. So the absolute to say that the parity that's coming up the teams was eye opening. As for the city itself, you hear about all these beautiful buildings here and there and the people, and it's astounding. It's just to walk out and just have 500 and 600 year old buildings, go through the Charles Bridge and all the other gorgeous things that you go. The clock down in the center. I had a chance to walk through Wenceslas Square and sit down in a patio, have a coffee, and just people watch. And it was just so much fun walking up. Did miles and miles and miles of walking because I enjoy it. First off, and secondly, I really love architecture, and it gave me a real nice a couple of days where I had time to go through everything and spend 3 or 4 hours to walk through everything, and then sit down, have a meal somewhere, walk a couple more hours back, and it really was it was eye opening. The style of the lifestyle out there. Um, we get into this trend here in North America that this is how it's supposed to be, and everybody wants to. No, no. I am much more towards a European style of life. There's a whole lot less stress. People go about their business. They do their thing. There's not that North American got to squash somebody else so I can get.
Dog eat dog.
Oh, well, that's a good term for it. Because I watched people, go into the markets, getting their fresh stuff, doing their what they got to do. Were there fast food things? Of course there was. Were they packed with people? McDonald's would be packed because it's the only one in that vicinity. But is it anything like what I see here? No. And I don't see, a lot of obese people out there either. And I
Let's
see a lot
talk.
of conditionalists.
Let's talk about the fans. While you talk about the people, the transition from the locals and then the people coming to watch the games. What was it like to sit in the crowd with them?
It was great. Very boisterous crowds. A lot of
Not
teams.
any different. That it could be a North American game being played in North America somewhere.
It could have been.
The
It could have
game
been.
translates then really well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You would never know if you weren't listening to conversations around you, if it was if you were sitting in Buffalo or if you were sitting in Raditon. Just the absolute the love of the game and the watch. The highs and the lows and watching everybody go with the flow. It was terrific. And then of course being able to talk to some of the greatest lacrosse minds around from everywhere and having some terrific conversations about all kinds of things.
What was
Life.
some of the what's one of the memorable conversations you had?
Um, I think one of the conversations that I had was with our two of the Dutch team, and he actually interviewed me, and we were talking again about the difference of the games, what the spirit is on and off the field for me. Just questions that I really wouldn't have pondered on there, and again, it came down to skill on the field, and it came to camaraderie and gelling with everybody off the field. To me, that was the exclamation point on all of it. And it really was easy to get along, easy to. I was sorry that the thing ended. I had so much fun, and it was such an enlightening event.
Another question: the arena size, the rink. What size was it? Was it European
Same size.
size?
Nope, same
So
size.
it's a little bigger.
It's a box. It's a regular box.
The same size as North American rink or European rink? Okay, so it isn't that they played on a European size rink.
No, they weren't extra large things. They were your typical
pretty much the same size as they're accustomed to playing here in North America. So the game didn't really change that much.
No, logistically it would be the same game. Conditionally, though, with conditions, remember it's outdoors, so
yeah,
you
absolutely.
could have sunshine in the morning, and you could have this torrential downpour for 20 minutes, and then go back to sunshine, and now you're playing in puddles, and it's a whole different mindset. Guys had to make sure they had the right shoes, and thankfully,
so it wasn't stop and start; it was stop and slide.
Yeah, when it was trying to not go through the boards. Because there were some guys who were wiping out all the place.
Some of the hardest hits were self-inflicted.
Well, when you're trying to stop and you slide into the board or fall down,
I shouldn't laugh because it might not be okay. You know, that's a worse version than turf toe in football, right? When the turf really reaches up and bites you.
But in this case, water. Watch these guys strap up some extra, some knee braces here and bandages there, and everybody came out and kept going. And to their credit, as far as I only seen one guy that had to get taken off, and that was near the end of the tournament. But he looked to be okay when he was leaving. But
how many games did they play, Gary? How many games did they play?
With playoffs, they could have done, I believe, as many as 8. The Green Gales played 6.
And this was over 1 week?
A couple, and then you were slotted where you were slotted. And when
this was over 1 week, right?
Yeah. It's over 4 days, actually.
Even better. So you were 4 days, 8 games. That's an average. Well, it's average. It's a simple math. 2 games a day.
Yeah. Some of the other teams are playing 1 game 1 day, 2 games another day. If they made it, another one played another one. And by the time you make the playoffs, it's one and done, right? So.
I remember. Well, not that I played at any great level. I just remember playing tournaments in hockey, and as an adult, a non-contact. And I remember those tournaments were something else.
Yeah.
The in-between periods, it's like you had to hurry up and do whatever you were going to do in there, because before you knew it, somebody else was in there, had to go in there, and then you had to get ready and go to another dressing room to play your next game. Yeah, I played as many as 3 games in one day. That's just it's grueling.
Yes, especially on a tournament at this level. And if you have a game that's at noon, now the way the games are set up are 2 15-minute quarters, and that's it. So if you're playing that game, and then 3 hours later you're playing again, you really don't have a chance to go and rest up. You're going to just kind of take your equipment off, hope it dries a little bit, and then try and get yourself as best you can back to be taped up again, and out you go. And the strong survive. And these guys are. If there's any question about the toughness of these guys are some tough.
Tell me a little bit about some of the players that stood out. Were there any players that a lot of the players, but there must have been the odd ones that you don't know, especially the ones that come from the original countries, not from Canada or the U.S., and play for those countries.
Well, watching the Ratatin team play, now remember they practice on this field year-round, and they have a chance to play together year-round. They are really a phenomenal team. You think about what would be a professional team in this league, and everybody knows what everybody's thinking. They're in sync with one another, and it shows in their game. And for again to have a team like Nova Scotia come in and be able to beat them in that playoff game says a lot about the Nova Scotia team. But it's more about not individuals, but teams being able to gel with teams after being in different parts of the world and coming together. The Green Gills, for an example, had one scrimmage before they were able to come over, and that was it as a team. Also, another little tidbit was their starting goalie, Ethan Harwood. He had some passport and ticket problems, so he missed the flights and all the stupidity that we went through, and had his own. And he got stuck in Frankfurt the next day for 10 hours. So he missed the first 2 games of the tournament. If anybody wants to know, Ethan Harwood was part of the Whitby Warriors Minto Cup team. So that's a pretty big piece not to have in your starting lineup. To his credit, Jack Carnduff, the backup goalie, played fantastic in a couple of games that he started. So, thank goodness for Jack and his abilities. But yeah, so there were all kinds of little tidbits that by the time it was midweek, it kind of settled it and sorted itself out.
I'm looking at this sheet here, and it says that the games go back to 2012. Do they go earlier?
Yeah, this is this. If it wasn't for COVID, this would have been its 30th year. So it goes back to 1993.
But did they always play it every year? Is it an annual thing, or
it is an annual thing? But it didn't start including other teams until the 8th year. It used to be the beginning of the Czech lacrosse season. This would be the start of it in March. I believe once they turfed the field in the eighth season, it became with a couple of extra teams from Germany, U.S., Japan, and then it started building from there. And then by 2007, like I said, the Green Gales were part of it, and some other countries, and it just kept building. And by 2018, he was at 24 teams, which is where they are now.
Let's talk about the Green Gales before we run out of time. We've got a few minutes left. We can still talk. We've got a fair ways to go yet, a little bit. Mm-hmm. About the Green Gales, tell us about the history of the team and how they find themselves being one of the teams that goes to this international tournament.
The Green Gales itself have been around since 1946. It was Jim Bishop's creation. An absolute top-to-bottom class organization. Doug Louie runs the organization and is the GM and picks his team. Joe Hiltz, who we've had as a guest also as a commissioner of Terrace Series Lacrosse, is the head coach. And really a well-prepared group of guys who have come up through the organization in junior. Now, hopefully at some point there's a senior A team that comes out of there. But for now, these guys wind up going to senior B most of the time in Brooklyn. And then a lot of the guys go play for the Arena Lacrosse League as well to keep playing.
Let's remind the folks that the Green Gales play out of Bowmanville.
Yes. Used to be the Oshawa Green Gales. Now it's just the Green Gales or Gales, depending on which team we're talking about.
But they play out of Bowmanville.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
We've got a bit of a connection there with our guest of ours, Jim Milligan. His son didn't make it today. That's what we're hoping to have today. We'll get him another time. What was it like to watch Dad watch son play?
Well, Dad wasn't out there, but
wasn't out there.
No, but Cam was a leader on the field. So he had 8 goals, a couple of assists to go with it. But the experience of guys like Cam Milligan and Bryce Tolmie with a younger group, it was almost like having another coach out there. And when they needed something, Cam would be in there to score a goal. And off the floor, great guy, good team guy, not aloof, in with the boys, having fun. And like I say, just part of that group that gelled together. So I was looking forward to having him on the show. We're going to have to rebook him and see where we go from there. But yeah, he's had a heck of a career up till now. His NLL career is hopefully just stalled, but going to happen again. He played last year with Panther City and started this year with Panther City. He had the beginnings with Rochester and a couple of years there. But he really came into his own playing for Kolesky's Panther City team last year. Him and Dean Farrell came in and basically turned the fortunes around for that team, almost making the playoffs. This year they made the playoffs. But Cam wound up playing with the ALL again at the end of the season for the Oshawa Outlaws, coached by Joe Hiltz. So Hiltzy had a good idea of what he was getting when he got Milligan onto the Gales.
We touched on the Nova Scotia Privateers, the winners. Is there anything you want to add to that team? And maybe we'll go around some of the Canadian teams that showed up there or local teams.
Well, say that the Privateers, they played fantastic. Just an absolute phenomenal bunch of guys who gelled together. The other one that stood up in my mind were the Alberta team, and the Gales played them twice, and the Alberta team,
the Warriors,
to their credit, they beat the Gales twice. One was that first game that we talked about, and one was in the consolation round, and they beat them 5-3, and stoned them cold. So
there were the Six Nations River Rats were a team that was represented there. That's can't have lacrosse without having the Six Nations involved.
Absolutely, and Drew Candid, former NLLer, part of the Rochester Bats. He was on that team as well. It was fun catching up with Drew. Also, Drew actually stayed an extra week and went to Austria. Jeff Shatler played on the Team Canada one.
Canada Selects.
It was fun seeing him again too. Still looks like he could play NLL. He's just that good a player. And he came beforehand. I think him and his wife went to Paris beforehand, then into Prague, and I believe they went to Austria afterwards also. So you turn this into quite a European vacation because, again, everything is close. So to go by train one place to another really is amazing. And, looking forward to
you can fit all Europe in Canada. So that gives you an idea of how much, and there's like 30 some odd countries, 40 some odd countries in that small little space with a lot of history.
Absolutely. Now, I'd be remiss if we didn't touch upon just a little bit of an NLL playoff start tonight.
Absolutely. You want to do that? We'll talk about the playoffs.
Yeah, we got a few minutes left. So, tonight, actually, as soon as I get off of here, I'll be headed off into traffic into Hamilton because you have the Toronto Rock and Halifax Thunderbirds going at it in the one-game elimination. Toronto has a little bit of an impediment. Tom Schreiber was taken off of the active roster, injury reserve, and Josh Dahlbeck is going to go from the practice squad onto the team. What does that mean? It means that the other gentlemen are going to have to step up. So you're probably going to see Challen Rogers out of the offensive door, and you're probably going to see a lot more of Corey Small and Stephen Keogh and Dan Dawson in the offensive mix to try and make up some of that ground. But that should be a really good game. Halifax has a lot of talent, and their biggest impediment this year has been inconsistency. So if they can put it together for 60 minutes, they can give Toronto fits. And if there's an upset to be had in this round of 4 games, put this one down as a question mark because Toronto better be on their toes. They have the talent and the horses to do it. They just have to make sure that they put in the full 60 minutes.
And in this case, on any given Friday.
Yeah, pretty certain. You have Colorado and San Diego going at it, and Colorado is the defending champions, and San Diego is the all-star team that was put together. And again, both teams have. Well, San Diego finished off about just shy of being number 1 in the league, but they didn't do it easily. And they've had goaltending issues and all kinds of little things along the way. They found ways to win, which to me shows character. But again, any given Friday or any given Saturday, and Colorado has enough talent. And whenever you have Dylan Ward in net, who's a big game goalie, just ask Buffalo last year, he can frustrate the hell out of you. And before you know it, guys like Zed Williams, Eli McLaughlin, and all the rest of these guys can take over.
What team do you think out of the playoff teams that you would have expected more for them going into the playoffs that maybe have to reclaim some of the favorite tag? Who's
that probably would have been Colorado because they, by the skin of their teeth, did they get in? They're defending champions, and they really didn't have a whole lot of turnover. So, to have that championship hangover last 6/8 of the season, 3/4 of the season. It really is, puzzling. But if they've righted the ship now, that should be a heck of a game
Just
against
in time, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, say San Diego, they were winning games that they should have blown teams out, and they were winning by a goal or two. Lost a couple of games that were kind of head scratchers, but the last month, they have been that team that we all expected. So they could be a juggernaut too. Buffalo is another one that comes to mind. They had a rough time going down the stretch, losing a couple of games, and even the one game against San Diego that was, I believe, 8-7 in overtime. Didn't really show any offense. They had injuries galore. You're talking about Chris Kluche, you're talking about Tehoka Nanticoke, Frazier, Ian McKay, Josh Byrne, major pieces to their offense that were out. And they've all come back the last couple of weeks, and they've had 2 games under their belt to get their timing back. So, another good one, because Rochester also limped into the playoffs, even though they started out 6-0. And, they came down, they won the last bit, but they had a 4-game losing streak in the middle where for a time there, people were even wondering if they're going to make the playoffs. So can they get it together for one game against Buffalo tomorrow night in Buffalo? Tough place to play, man, and it's going to be packed. They're going to have between 17 and 19,000 people, just like they did for the Rock game a couple of weeks back. And loud, Bandit Land is nuts. So
is there a team scary in the playoffs that you wouldn't want to meet that isn't coming in as a high-ranking team?
I would say that Calgary, not being a top echelon team and losing all, they've lost Dobie and they've lost Dixon over the last couple of years. But man, when they have Christian Del Bianco in the nets, they can steal any game, anytime. And they probably have the best transition game of any of the teams that are out there. So put that together, and you have Jesse King leading them. Easily, they can find their way in the finals again. And remember, not long ago, 2019, they were champions. So
right now, is there a team that you think has the best shot? I mean, it doesn't sound like you have a. Well, I don't either. Colorado hasn't played a season like you expect from a champion, so it probably means that the championship's wide open.
It is. It is, because if everything works the way it's supposed to work, you're going to have Buffalo against Toronto in a best 2 out of 3. You're going to have Calgary against San Diego in a best 2 out of 3. And who knows when you put these guys together, because they've had heck of games, split series, both sides throughout the year.
San Diego's done a lot of improving. Like, they really improved.
They're an all-star team. They are an all-star team. They have wave after wave after wave that they can send at you. Scigliano has actually been able to, find his game throughout the year, and the last while has been solid in net. So, are there many holes in that team? No. So to the NLL credit and the parity of it, you probably have 4 great games coming up, followed by 2 really good series coming up after that towards your finals. So there should be a whole lot of momentum and energy, intensity building, so that by the time the finals run around, it's not already a lunch bag letdown. It's just going to be, ramp that thing right all the way up to the top.
Well, I think we're about out of time, Gary. You did a great job of ad-libbing, buddy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've learned from the best.
Who you been learning from? Okay, he's Gary Groob. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Today was a special presentation. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for Lacrosse Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. And don't forget, Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Subscribe. Check us out. Thanks for watching.